Hi everypony. Today I will be discussing the Season 3 opener, The Crystal Empire. However, I can't do this in my normal fashion for various reasons. So this time, I will be analyzing how MLP does its season openers and comparing the job it's done well in either Return of Harmony or the Nightmare Moon arc. First, the adventure plotline they add to each of these. Return of Harmony did a great job because the threat was present at all times and the villain drove the conflict, and the main six were able to decide how to confront each situation. These elements are extremely lacking in this adventure arc though. Okay, maybe that's mean. I mean, Celestia's test was present throughout with all of Twilight's reminders, and the test did drive Twilight's need to rely on no pony else. So I guess the only way it fails is in letting them do what they want. Throughout these episodes, the main five and Twilight act like they're part of a bad D&D campaign where the Dungeon Master has total control of the character's actions. Twilight is under total control of Celestia's orders, and is simply using her abilities to handle events Celestia hands her without new challenges arising that she has to figure out how to handle. The reason it works out like this is because she is playing DM for the main five, delegating to them any task that is not directly linked to saving the Empire from... Wait, what is her test? Be the only pony to help Cadence and Shining Armor save the Empire. From what? Who the fuck is Sombra? Sombra is why this episode did such a terrible job with the threat and the villain. Twilight, the episode's main focus, shoved Sombra so much to the side that I couldn't remember his name after the episode was over. Instead, I got the feeling that the test was the actual villain. Sombra not only felt like a far-off threat with a timer than an actual villain, and, as I implied earlier, the test felt more like the driving force than the actual King of Darkness. This left a bad taste in my mouth because it was impossible to take Celestia's test seriously when Twilight puts accomplishing the test above saving the Empire and all the ponies in it. That is of course part of the second requirement for the season openers. In each of the season openers, the characters are either established or re-established. Return of Harmony did a good job of illustrating the positive side of the characters, but the Nightmare Moon Saga did a beautiful job of using the two episodes to illustrate deeper character traits than just their basic stereotypes. Crystal Empire did a decent job in one way, while a terrible job in another. The characters flowed from Season 2 to 3 in these episodes in the form of the banter and relaxed interaction between each of the characters. However, they failed miserably at re-establishing the characters because they attempted to use their worst character traits to show what their base character traits are. What makes this worse is the fact that Twilight is separated from them so thoroughly that most of them get 2 lines of dialogue that goes past bad base character establishment. Those lines are reduced to comedy, however, that feels natural. 2 characters get actual focus, Twilight of course, and Rainbow Dash. The choice to have Rainbow Dash as pseudo-leader of the main 5 because Twilight is away is strange, because Applejack always seems to take this role instead. To make matters worse, Rainbow Dash has her worst personality trait focused on, her anger and brashness. This is done so badly that in the 5-scene sequence they chose to use to show character traits has her angrily interrogating them to the point of physically grabbing the pony. Applejack gets the regular treatment of not getting any love because she is excluded from the 5-scene sequence, Twilight taking her place in it, and is forced to stay in one place protecting the fake Crystal Heart, although that does lead to an entertaining scene. The other 3 are completely ignored except making Rarity as vain as possible, Pinkie as silly as she ever has been, and Fluttershy is so shy that she can't even talk to any pony through the episode. Twilight was established just as badly though. If her identity for the rest of the season was based off of this, then she hasn't learned anything in the past 2 seasons. In this 2-part, she allows the test to seem more like a villain than Sombra because it's the only thing she thinks about. She ignores her friends and acts like a nerdy schoolgirl, obsessing over the pretty library, looking at a real-life situation as a research paper, and telling Spike he can't do anything because that breaks the rules of the test. Her character ignored the focus of the show, interacting with her friends. Besides that though, it was Spike's stubbornness at sticking to her that allowed her to be successful in the end. If Spike had been out of character enough to not be at her side, then the entire thing would have failed. This is made problematic by the fact that Spike is usually not even around, and until he pulls her away from the door and carries the Crystal Heart down to Cadence, he didn't need to be there. Speaking of which, the door scene told us that failing the test was more frightening to her than losing her friends like in Return of Harmony. Only these episodes can make this seem right as part of her character. Moving on to characters who were only disappointing. Cadence and Shining Armor had no point in this episode, minus the last 5 minutes. Okay, this is mildly unfair because we have no way of knowing what plans the writers have for the two in the Empire. However, most of the episode has us watch as Cadence is drained beyond the point of full consciousness, and Shining Armor is told to stay with Cadence rather than help run the fair. It seems like a great way to set them up, but it's disappointing that we didn't see either one of them get developed beyond what we knew about them from the wedding, except for the fact that Shining Armor is Shining Dirtbag. Don't buy it? He says that the reason he can't help Cadence is because of his magic being countered by Sombra when he had been disabled for 5 minutes. It wasn't until his sister was there to keep him honest that he actually stayed with his seemingly dying wife. Finally, it's time for the third thing each of the openers have to do. Provide the story room to grow in the season. There is reason why the adventure arcs work so well because they allow new concepts to be introduced and new characters. The first one introduced all of the characters and the concepts in a beautiful way that gave them an entire town, a cursed forest, 2 immortal sisters, 6 dynamic characters, and 1,000 years of lore to explore. Seriously, all it gave the writers to work with is amazing. Return of Harmony expanded on sides the main 6's personalities that we really hadn't seen before. The Crystal Empire did an amazing job of expanding where the story could go. First off, it gave us an entirely new location to work with. The writers haven't done anything with it yet, but it's there. Second, it introduced the concept that Celestia isn't supreme ruler of the world. By establishing the Empire and saying Cadence and Shining Armor as the rulers, it allows for there to be other kingdoms and rulers, which of course leads to the third concept introduced that is directly tied to the second. Twilight actually performing royal duties as a vassal of Celestia's. These 2 concepts were used during the 3rd season in preparation for what was to come. These were all things that this episode did a great job of establishing for the remainder of the show, even without a proper villain to support the episode, and it failed pretty miserably as an episode as a whole, but it did a great job expanding the world of MLP. Not to mention, they fixed the characters come the next episode, so what should I touch on that I haven't? Oh yeah, the moral. The moral was that you should always do what's best for every pony else, rather than what's best for yourself. This was driven by the concept of the test Twilight had been given by Celestia, and that is the problem with this moral. If it weren't for her obsession for the test, which wasn't part of her character, it wouldn't exist. In any other episode, she would have never ignored every pony the way she did. Time for editor's notes. The songs in this episode were actually pretty good, in my opinion, but the failure success song seems to come out of nowhere the first time, and doesn't really provide that strong a wrap-up to the episodes. The Crystal Ferris song is catchy, and was actually a pretty decent way of reminding us of what every pony, except for Rainbow Dash and Twilight, did when they're home. Sombra has a voice, and I actually think how they used it sounded cool now that I actually heard it. He also brings into question how powerful unicorns can be since he sealed away the Empire for 1,000 years. Lastly, the tone was set very well throughout these episodes in very good ways by using Shining Armor to set the arrival scene with an intense feeling, and Luna made the reveal scene for the threat feel properly built up to. This is Red Pen saying, "Who wants to live in a badly sculpted rock?"